Hey everybody, and welcome to the 2022 Chairman's Choice Awards. So I tend to do a video like this every year where I talk about my favourite game in a bunch of different categories. Now I have 13 categories this year, which is a slight tweak on last year because I have added a hidden gem category. I'm not going to go into tremendous detail on these games because I have released a bucket load of content on them, so be sure to do some digging on my channel to find out more. But before I get started on the awards, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer when it comes to purchasing board games here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so let's start with the co-op game category. Now I have to admit I haven't played too many co-op games because I'm generally not a fan of the genre, but despite that there was one game that stood head and shoulders above the competition, and that game is Switch and Signal. So this is a co-op train logistics game as you're trying to guide these trains around the map, trying to know when to put stop signs and go signs up, and do this a little kind of pick up and deliver game to be as efficient as you can with as little wasted movement as you can. It works really well, so that is Switch and Signal, my favourite co-op game of the year. In the family game category, my favourite game of the year was Caesar's Empire, which was a 2022 release and definitely one of my favourite games of the year. This one really did come out of nowhere for me. I wasn't quite sure what to expect with this one because the rules density is very low, but there is some really cool decisions to be made in this little route building and set collection game. And it did have some very tough competition with games such as Cascadia and Acropolis to compete against. So very well deserved victory for Caesar's Empire in the family weight category. In the hidden gem category, the winner this year is Municipium by Rainer Knizia. This game has very luckily snuck on to being eligible right at the last second because I think this is probably the last game that I'm going to play in 2022. But this is a very neat kind of an area majority style game as you're manipulating the board state and activating powers on the board. You're trying to collect these different meeples of different colours. A set of each meeples is going to gain you a coin, and then it's going to be a race to get to a certain amount of coins. It's very cool how the different parts of the game synergize and how the kind of timing exercise comes into play as each power is triggered in a different order. Really impressive game. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and it did blow me away. And I did actually make a video, my best of the month video, when this game did feature, and I was a little bit skeptical whether it was going to hold its own after repeated plays, and I'm happy to say that it really has. So the more I'm playing this one, the actual more I'm enjoying it. And this game had some very tough competition, competing against Splitter, very cool little roll and write style game, Mask Men, which is a kind of a ladder climbing and shedding game, and also Pergamon, which was a reprint by Stefan Dora. So yeah, very tough category, but Municipium came out on top. In the card game category, the winner is Condottiere, which is a game I've really been singing the praises of this year. This is a hand management and area majority style game as you are playing these troop cards and special cards in order to manipulate the state of play into your favour and try to control regions of Italy. Very competitive and it scales extremely well, and another category that had some very tough competition, competing against games such as Scout, which I love, games like Photograph or Wind the Film, and also Sub-Astral. So again, very, very tight competition there. Next up, we have the unique game category, which is a very difficult list to appear on because there is so much duplication in board game design nowadays. But there was one game that was definitely a standout and had no competition in my eyes. That is Picture Perfect. So this game, you are basically manipulating these bunch of standees around this dining table, and all these different standees are representing different people, of course, and they all have different wants and needs. So some might say, well, I want to stand next to this character. Some might say, I want to stand next to the table or away from the table, or I want this person's face to be hidden. And you are trying to manipulate all these standees to get the most optimal photo and memorize what everybody wants. It's very cool. The game has really grown on me, and it's definitely stayed in my collection. And every time it comes out to hit the table, I enjoy it a lot. So that is Picture Perfect, the winner of the unique game category. Next up, we have the surprise game category, or I should say the pleasant surprise. And the winner of this category is Caesar's Empire, pretty much for the same reasons I've already explained. So this has won 2 awards now, really has cemented itself into my collection. I get this to the table so regularly and I can never see this one going anywhere. It does have that real evergreen quality to it. And some of the competition this game beat is Rustling Leaves, really cool little roll and write game, Alice's Garden, and Hiroba. Next up we have the filler game of the year, and what I mean by this are games that you can get set up, taught, played, and packed up within 30 minutes. And the winner of this category is Scout by Oink Games. So this game has reached immense popularity, and rightly so, because the gameplay is so fun in this hand management small box card game, as you are acquiring cards into your hand, but you have to keep them in order, and then you're basically trying to play a ladder climbing game by constantly trying to beat the previously played hand and playing stronger and stronger suits, trying to shed your hand of cards. It works so well. That restrictiveness of the hand management is just so fun to try and overcome, and I love it. Some of the competition this had to fight against was Acropolis, so another kind of runner-up award for that game, and also Sub-Astral. Next up we have the 2-player only category. So these games are strictly for 2 players and are not multiplayer games that play well with 2 players, if that makes sense. And the winner of this category is Stella by Renegade Games. So Stella, a game that I played pretty much at the beginning of the year, and I still play it now. It is so good in the way you are managing this hand of cards. You are building up this kind of spatial puzzle of these planets on your telescope, but also you are trying to create rows of the matching types of cards in front of you, because they are going to be your multiplier based on what you've placed in that puzzle. Very thinky, some maybe counterintuitive mechanisms, but it definitely is worth putting the effort in and trying to grok this one, because it is so rich and so much fun to play. Another game with fierce competition, competing against Caesar, Seize Rome in 20 minutes, Trambarn, Kaching, and District Noir. Next up we have the best party game category, and this was another category where there was a standout victor, and that victor is Detective Club. So Detective Club is a twist on the Dixit / Mysterium genre of games. We have a hand of finely illustrated cards, and then somebody is going to choose a word or a concept. They're going to pass that word to everybody except for one player, and then everybody is trying to play a matching card to associate with that word, except the one player who doesn't have the word has to kind of bluff it and try to convince the other players to think that they knew what the word is, and try to throw the blame on somebody else to try and accuse them of not knowing. Very fun. That is Detective Club, the best party game of the year. So let's get into the main categories now. So I've broken them down into weight categories with accessible game of the year, intermediate game of the year, and advanced game of the year. So let's start with the accessible game of the year, and that is another victory for Condottiere. So all the same reasons I've mentioned, that hand management is great, the scalability is fantastic, some great tense decisions, and that attrition of trying to manage your hand of cards most efficiently was fantastic. And it just edged out, I think maybe even by a single ranking, Caesar's Empire, which was eligible for its 3rd award. Other competition included Vikings and also Rumble Nation. In the intermediate category, my favourite game was Kalamala. Kalamala is an area majority style game, as you are fighting for majorities in a bunch of different fronts. But I love the way at the start of the game, all those different categories are going to be laid out, so you know exactly how to strategize, when to start investing in things, when to start pulling away and going into something else. So loads of planning you can do here. The action selection system is fantastic, as you're placing a disc down in between 2 separate actions and getting to activate them. But if somebody else goes to that same spot, then anybody else who's already been there will also get to take those actions again. So some great interaction here. And another game, lots of competition with St. Petersburg, the Estates, Millefiori, Samurai. So really well-deserved victory for Kalamala. And the final 2 categories I may as well talk about at the same time, because the top 3 spaces are identical, and that is the advanced game category and the overall best game category. And the winner of both of those categories is Russian Railroad. So a fantastic worker placement game with a whole different concept when it comes to scoring points in this one, as you are trying to constantly improve these 3 different railway lines by shifting up these pieces. But the more you push one thing, it means you can start investing in the next one and getting more and more points. Just a ton of points being thrown at you at this one. The worker placement is great, lots of tense kind of turn angst to try and get to the spots that you really want, and it is a ton of fun. So well-deserved victory for Russian Railroads in the advanced game category and the overall best game category. And the top 3 spaces, But of course, Russian Railroads. In second place, I had Bora Bora, and in third place, I had Brussels 1893. So there we have it, that concludes the 2022 Chairman's Choice Awards. I really hope you've enjoyed the video, and it goes to show how strong this year has been, at least for me personally, because there are so many games here that didn't get an award that were just, you know, immense quality. So more of the same please going into 2023. If you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.